15th of January 2007, and I'm having a chat here with Mrs. Barbara Rushby. Now, Barbara, can you tell me first of all, where were you born?
I was born on Ballycroft Lane. Now, there used to be, there's three what you call townhouses now. If you're coming from Lawton Road and on the right hand side, they've built three townhouses, as they call them, modern. Now, I was born on there. There used to be 5 cottages, stone cottages, and I was born in number 38 there. But they were pulled down some years ago. And we had a well outside where we had to go and pump for the water. And my grandfather lived in the other end and he had his own pump and he used to pump in that one. We had no water on, so we used to pump the water from there.
What about electricity?
Oh no, no, we haven't got electricity.
So you used to have oil lamp?
No, it was gas.
It was gas?
Yes. Now, my grandfather was used to having, you know, a lamp, and then when they put him the gas in, they put a little mantle on, you know, like he did, you know, to light. And when he was ready for going to bed at night, instead of like when he used to snuff the candle, you know, with his fingers, he went and did that with a mantle. So he had to go and buy some more.
Now, where was your father born in Dinnington?
Oh, yes, yes.
Now, I understand.
And my grandfather.
Well, first of all, let's say, what kind of work did your father do?
Well, he was a cripple.
Yes.
He was always a cripple. That was through an accident, falling off a hay rick when he was only a young child. And he used to be a gardener up at Aythorpe Hall when he was private, when the Aythorpe family lived there. He was a gardener, and then he moved to the Cocums, and he retired from there.
I'm with you. Now, we'll come back onto the Aythorpes in a minute, but your mother's maiden name was? Marklew. Now, I understand...
She didn't come from Dinnington.
She didn't?
Oh, no.
So before you were married, you was a Hurst. Now, you've just said to me, which I fully understand, the Hurst was a very, very old name in Dinnington.
It was the oldest on the Dinnington registers, 1703.
That's as far back as the register?
That's as far back as it started, yes.
Now, tell me, Barbara, we're going back now, you are 80...
I'm 88, I'll be 89 this year.
Not out?
Yeah.
Now then, tell me, let's go back now into your childhood. What kind of a life would you say? Was it hard for your mother?
Well, I was the only one. I had a sister, I don't remember, died as a baby. So I was the only one. So I was sort of, had little bits more than probably children with other families. I've got cousins that, you know, there were 6 in their family. And I know one of them told me one day, if it rained, she used to say to the other sister, oh, let's go up to my auntie's, that was my mother. And she lent us an umbrella to go back home with. And people would see us with an umbrella. And that was a luxury to have an umbrella.
You were special. What would you say times were hard in those days?
Oh, they were very hard.
Because Mother wouldn't have much money.
Oh no, she used to say, when she paid all the bills on Friday when the wages came in, she used to pay the rent, everybody did anything, everything was clear. In those days, if you couldn't afford to pay for the thing, you did not have it. Credit wasn't known, you wouldn't have it. And at the end of the week, on the Friday, she had ½ a crown, 2 and 6 in the old money. And that was to keep us for the rest of the week.
Did you ever go hungry, Barbara?
No, she was very good. My father always had an allotment, and he provided all the potatoes and all the vegetables, so that made a huge difference. So, no, very well fed.
Now, for clothes, like it is today, people go out today and they'll spend goodness knows
Oh yes.
How did you used to go on for clothes?
Well, my mother had an old treadle sewing machine, and her mother had one, and she never learned it to do, and she got on it one day when she was out, and made a mess of it, damaged it. So she always said, the first time I asked to use it, I would be able to use it, chance what age. So when I was 11, I was fidgeting to want to use this so I can make some clothes. So she learnt me the treadle part, because you had to do it with your feet, and so I used to try and make my own.
Well done.
Yes.
Now, what about school days? Which school did you go
I
to?
went to the Dinnington, you know, the council at bottom.
Who was the head? Can you remember?
In the young children part, it was a Miss Wilson. She was the headmistress. Very, very keen, very good, but very, very keen.
Did you ever have any...
Oh, no, no.
Don't tell me, Barbara, that you're one of these goodies.
No.
Apple for the teacher every morning.
Oh, no, but she was very keen. But so long as you attended and you listened to what she said, she was all right.
Did you enjoy school?
Well, I liked the idea, but I was glad to finish when I was 14.
You finished at 14?
Finished at 14.
What was your favourite subject? Did you have one?
Well, I liked arithmetic. I did that. I liked poetry and composition. I liked that. And if ever they wanted anybody to read a poem, I knew I was going to be the one that would picked out to say the poem.
Had you ever got a favourite poem that sticks in your memory?
I can always remember getting up and just saying one, The Dying Gladiator. I don't know what...
Can you remember a bit?
Byron.
Can you remember a little of it?
I can't now.
No, but you enjoyed it.
And I used to be able to do the Host of Golden Daffodils, you know, from the Lake District, the William Wordsworth.
Dancing Lonely as a Cloud, yeah. Host of Golden Daffodils.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, did you have, when you came up home from school,
yes,
did you have many jobs to do to help Mum?
Not really, because you know, my mother was at home all day in those days, so it was only a small cottage, and of course she used to clean and she used to bake and she used to make the clothes.
But it must have been hard, Barbara. I mean, when you
yes.
think of the baking, the wash day, for instance.
Oh yes, she used to get up very early on a Monday morning. I had to go outside and light what you called a copper and boil the water up in that. And then we had the old dolly tub and the old dolly legs.
You had running water, had you, or did you?
Yes, we had it eventually, but we had a pump in the first place. And then eventually we got a tap. But there was no sinkhole. So my father said, I'm not having that, so he chipped the hole through. So the water went through and it ran down this passage. There was no pipe. And as children, we used to sit there and float little matchsticks down. We thought that was wonderful. Today, they'd have thought it was terribly unhealthy.
Well, you wouldn't have flush toilets.
Oh, no, certainly not. They was not, about 2 yards from the back door, there was the old Snowden's tailor's shop, as you called it. And you went up these stairs, and Walter Snowden was sat tailoring up there. His father, James Snowden, had a grocery shop, you see, there, in that road. And when the toilets were under, they were sort of under this tailor shop, and no ventilation whatever, and there was just like these wooden seat, and what you call a short dustpan, dustbin, as I would call it, enamel dustbin. And then eventually at night, a cart used to come round, and of course they had quite a vulgar name for it, this cart that came, and they was empty every night, you know, take them away. But in the summer, oh, it was dreadful.
The stench and the flies and the...
Dreadful.
So, but at night time then, if you wanted to go to the toilet, you'd have to go... Or did you have the goes under?
Well, yes, but mostly if you wanted to go properly, you went over into the yard.
So for dark, windy, cold, frosty...
You just had a candle or something, you know.
Oh, Right, so we've got our childhood. Now tell me,
Yes.
when you broke up for holidays, did you go off to Benidorm or
Oh,
Tenerife?
certainly not.
What?
We never heard of them, no.
You,
You couldn't afford anything like that.
so where did you
If
go?
you had a day trip to the seaside, you was lucky.
How did you get there? Did you go by train or by...
Very often there was an old Dinnington and Lawton station. Do you remember it? And we used to walk up there and go and get on the train and go on this day trip. And it was very often organised by the Sunday school. And we used to go on that. And it was mostly to Cleethorpes, and we thought that was marvellous. And then later years, I was still a child like. My mother used to try to save a little bit each week, and she used to take me to Cleethorpes for a week, which was a luxury. And she just used to do bed and breakfast. She'd take the food in, and for £0.50 a week, this landlady would cook the little bit of food or anything at dinner when we went back in. And that was a big luxury.
Can you remember picking those shells from there at Cleethorpes?
Oh yes.
All those different colours.
Yes,
Can you-
beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now then, so we managed, Mum tried to let you have a day off at Cleethorpes, and
Oh,
eventually a little holiday, which was must have been
That
a
was a
super.
luxury.
There was a lot who didn't though.
Many didn't. I remember my cousins, there were 6 of them, lived in Dinnington, and she had a family of 6. So she was never able to afford to take them till they got quite a bit older. So she took them one day and she came back and she said, I was shamed. So my mother said, what do you mean you were shamed? She said, well, we got off and got onto the front, and so excited, they ran down. Oh, one of them, a bit older than the other, shouted to her, oh, come on, Esme, come on. She says, it's clean muck. She meant the sand, because it only played in soil and bits of wood.
Now then, Barbara, you went to school, you left at 14.
Yes.
But what was your first job?
Well, there was very few jobs about, and for a long time I was sort of stayed at home. I used to go and help an old lady across the road, and she'd probably give me £0.50 every so often. But you know, jobs they were very difficult to come by. So I was quite some years before I really got what I called a proper job. And that was to serve and work in Graham's ironmongery shop. So I worked in there.
You worked in there?
Oh yes.
That shop where you went in and there was everything from a pin to an elephant?
That's right, yes.
What was it like to work for?
Oh, they were very
Strict?
good, very good, very good. Yes, they were very good to me, yes.
Now,
And you know when we had the bombs, they didn't go off, but they went all over Lawton. Do you remember that?
I do. I've been told, yes.
And there was a man who used to come on. They hung him after the war. There was
Lord Haw-Haw.
Lord Haw-Haw. And we listened to it, of course we'd no telly, but we had a little radio. And we listened to it, and, well, we called it wireless then. And we listened to the wireless, and he was mocking, and he said, we have wiped out the town of Laughton. You know, he pronounced it Laughton instead of Lawton. We have wiped it out. But they always said they'd been a very, very good friend. And they think it was Czechoslovakia. They hadn't primed these bombs right. And I was in the window decorating at Graham's this particular day. And the squad had come, you know, to defuse them. And the man walked in, one of these men, and he said to one of the girls, how long will she be in the window? Because I was pressing a window and I was stood in it in Graham's shop. So he came over to me. I said, oh, I shall be here all afternoon. He says, I don't think so. He says, I must ask you to come out now. He said, we do hope everything will go well, which it mostly does. But just in case it doesn't, You can't be in that window. So that was abandoned for the day.
Now you mentioned, well, yes, you mentioned the Aythorpes, and
Yes.
that your father worked for them for a
And my
while.
mother, yes.
Now, did you mix with them at all, or were they the Oipoloi and...
Oh, well, I mean, in later years I knew them as I grew up. But they knew them when they were children. They had their own governess and, you know, their own nanny and everything like that. And they were quite well off. But Mrs. Aythorpe, she did tell them one day, she said, the maids, right, they said, how good, because two of my father's sisters worked there as well. They had a huge staff in those days.
They did?
My father's brother was a butler there. My father was a gardener, so most of the family was employed.
Well, you were part of the family almost.
Oh, yes. So, anyway, she did say they lived down in Brighton, and she said it was more or less on our uppers. We hadn't very much money. And then somebody came with a telegram running to her while she was down there. And apparently they'd been left this Aythorpe estate. And also one at, what's that other place, dear? They've got a hall, there was another hall, not far away.
Furbeck?
No, I've seen it, we've been through it.
Sambeck? No.
No,
Never mind, they'll come to
I
us.
can't think what they called it
Yeah.
now. But there was these two halls, and then they did an estate somewhere a bit further out as well, nearer to York. So they suddenly came and inherited it, you see.
Ah, I'm with you.
Yes.
Now, were you a church girl, Barbara?
Oh yes, we had to go to Sunday school.
Church or chapel?
Oh, church, yes. And the Sunday school was, you know, the Ukrainian club that is now. I went to that as a Sunday school, but you wouldn't recognise it as it is now. Oh dear.
So you were saying you went to the Sunday school on Barleycroft Lane?
Where the old Ukraine club is, but it was nothing like it is now. There was just one room, and you all sat in there together. There was just one room, and that. Now my father, they paid a penny a week for him to go to school there, because his parents could neither read or write. So when there's the opportunity, he was a family of 12, so it took a lot of doing to pay a penny a week for them. So he went for a penny a week because they wanted him to have some education.
So without that penny a week, you wouldn't have got any?
Oh no. And in those days, the teacher, she lived in the house, you know where we lived at 37?
Yeah.
Well, that was a house with 3 bedrooms and a living room, and that was her living place. That was the head teacher. And she had a young girl, about 14, to deal with these other little children, because there was all in just this one small room. And my father used to say, woe betide if you knock one of the little ones over, you get a good smack. And that was it.
Was your father strict?
No, he wasn't really strict, no.
It threatened?
No, he'd only got to give me a look or just say, and I should be so upset because he was such a lovely father to me.
I mean, your mother and father, they had a hard life. All right, like a lot more.
Yes.
They had a hard life, not as hard as some, with big families like...
Oh no.
Can you remember who used to bring them into the world and help to take them out again when they're gone?
Nurse Mail brought me into the world, if you remember the name.
No.
And she had a daughter called Nurse Elks, that was her daughter, but Nurse Mail. And I was born, I tell you, on Barleycroft Lane.
I remember when a person died, there was no chapel of rest.
Oh no, we had them in your own house.
Had them in your own house?
We were moving them.
Can you remember? Yeah, they did.
Wade Kay lived at the end, as we called him.
And people used to come and view them.
Oh yes.
Wade Kay, that's right, that's the
Wade Kay,
name.
yes.
Yeah.
He was the undertaker. You know, at the end of Barleycroft and looking down, you know, towards Lawton Road. It's still there, that house.
Still there.
But they tell me where it used to have to make all his own coffins, you know. They weren't ready made in those days. But they tell me all that long workshop now, they've been made into sort of houses, flats. People living there.
But if they were so poor, Barbara,
Yeah.
how could they afford a funeral if they got, say, 10 or 12 in a family and a little one died?
Yes.
They must have got into debt or something to pay for a funeral.
I don't know really how they went on, because they didn't have what we call credit and debt in those days. They wouldn't have afforded it.
Although you can remember the pawnbrokers.
Oh yes, yes. Brown's, Harry Early used to run it. Yes, I can remember that. And he used to go on a Monday, if they could redeem them back, they used to go queue up on a Monday. I can remember seeing the queues as I came up from school. And in those days, we used to walk home for dinner, think nothing of it. You know, we weren't busting or anything. We used to walk down Lawton Road, and Mr. Pickard, he lived at Hanston, a biggish house. I don't know whether you know, it's still
Yeah, I do.
there.
I filmed him. I filmed his son.
Did you? And he was a little stout man, and he used to walk home for his dinner every day from there, from the school.
No school dinners, no.
Oh, no.
Did you ever get involved in politics, Barbara?
Well, when I got to about, what, maybe 11 or 12, I suddenly made my mind up. I saw different things and different people, and I decided you could only be a Conservative if you was rich. I formed that in my mind very early. I think it was through getting in with the Aythorpes, because when it was the polling day, this Toby, as they used to call him, he was Marmaduke Middleton Aythorpe, you know. That's where they're getting all these names from these streets and that now. But their name for him as a child, when they worked with him up at the hall, it was Toby. And Toby used to come with the blue ribbons on with the car to pick up like. And so my mother used to go with another neighbour from down Church Lane, and she used to say, well, he doesn't know who we're going to vote for when we get inside, so we'll go. And they used to go with him. But I made my mind up. I thought, I weighed it up, and I thought, the only way I think you could be a Conservative, particularly in those days, you'd have to be a rich person. And they fought hard to get a Labour Party for the working class.
Well done. Now when the mine came, of course,
That altered a lot.
it altered the main street in Dinnington with shops.
Oh yes. Now my father remembers no shops. Just this rough unmade road, a grass verge, a hedge, and a very small stream running down. He remembers it like that. Of course I couldn't remember anything like that.
Almost like a little country village.
Oh yes, definitely. Well, everybody knew everybody. You never locked your doors. You just, people walked from one to one. If anybody wasn't well and they hadn't a relative, neighbours rallied too. And that was it. That was as far as it went. You expected to do it.
Can you remember any really big families? I mean, they tell me that 10 and 12 in a family.
Oh, my father, there were 12 in his. When he had a meal, he never able to sit down. They hadn't got enough chair.
So what did his father do? Did his father work at the pit?
His father could neither, oh no, he could neither read or write. His father, when he was 11, he helped his father, that was a stonemason, put an extension on the church. And he was only a boy of 11, and he was working and hugging these stones.
He actually extended the church.
He actually helped with the extension. Because as the village grew, they wanted the church. It was very tiny, he said. And at 11 he was working, so he couldn't read or write.
So if he wanted to sign his name, it was a cross.
It was a cross. I once had to go to workshop where there was married, my grandparents, And the man there said, would you like to come round here and let me show you what's this certificate? There was only one on that signed the name. And that was a person called, on the certificate it said Peter Stenton. And I said to him, that man is known as Chris Stenton to us. And all the others, my grandparents, there was a cross where the others should be.
Oh.
Because they just could not read or write. And I saw that, he asked me to look at it, because I had to go and get it cleared up, because when my father were getting ready for the pension, they said, make sure how your name is spelt, because my father was known as Bob. That wasn't his name. His name was Herbert Ernest. He was called Herbert after his father, and the lady that was his godmother, she was a Miss Gurnall. Now, the horse trough, horse trough,
yes,
that was from that family. There was a wealthy farming family, this Gurnall, and my grandmother asked her, would she like to be his godmother? She said yes, providing you put my fiance's name on. So he was called Ernest, so my father was called Herbert Ernest Hurst. Nobody ever recognised that name, because the same night, one of his uncles, my grandfather's brother, came up. He wasn't married, and he said to him, what have you called him then? So he told him, Herbert Ernest. He said, I did think you would have called him after me. He said, if you called him after me, I would have bought him his first long suit, long trouser suit. So his name was Robert, called Bob. So my grandfather, not missing a trick, not wanting to lose out, he said, right, we'll call him Bob. So nobody ever had called him like that, he was called Bob. And even on his gravestone, I had it put Bob, and then I had a proper name put underneath, because I knew nobody would recognise him as Herbert Ernest.
Now tell me, can you remember the lodging house?
Oh, definitely, yes. I can remember some of the characters.
Can you?
I can remember there was one, a very tall old man, who used to get drunk a lot. He used to go over to the Falcon, and I was stood in the square. You know, we used to wait for the buses up there in those days.
Right.
I was only a teenager with some more. We were stood up there, and he came staggering out. He was absolutely drunk. And he must have thought he crossed the road to go to the lodging house where he lived. Instead of that, he crossed to the centre, and you know the horse trough was there. He hoisted himself up, and there'd been a lot of rain, and he was laid in the top part of that. And he realised then, I think it sobered him up. He got up, and he was absolutely drunk.
Did you ever go inside it, Dorothy, Barbara?
I never went inside, but they had the big doors, and you could go up there. But a cousin of mine, he went up, and one of them, he used to say, they called him Banks, this man, and they said he had a good recipe for a very bad back. So his father said, go up and go and ask for that recipe. I'll pay him, you know, to make me this stuff up. So he went, and he said, I said, I want to see Mr. Banks. He was only a young boy. And they shouted, Dr. Banks, they called him. So he gave him this invocation, like, and he paid him so much money. And he said, oh dear, he said, I went up there, he said, and there was all these little blocks of houses, you know, little hovels, as more or less they were. And I think they were very cheap.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. Can you remember who ran it?
Oh yes. Well, she was a Mrs. Turner. Mrs. Turner ran it. Her name was Robinson before she was married, but she ran it for years. And her mother-in-law ran it before her.
Now, we haven't mentioned this.
Because it was once put in as a workhouse, wasn't it? And it was no such thing. It was a lodging house.
No, we're going back with the workhouse. We're going back way, way back before the lodging house, when every village had to have its own
Well,
little...
as far as I remember...
Oh, well before you, Barbara.
They had to go to Rotherham.
But before Rotherham was built, That was built in 1870 something. It'd be way before then.
Yeah.
That's when it was. I'll let you know the history sometime. Tell me now, where did you meet your husband?
Well, I'd known him on that photograph from a child.
As a child?
Yes, he lived on Ballycroft Lane as well.
So you did the running, did you?
Oh, no, we both had people before that.
Oh, I see.
No.
Oh, right.
No.
But
no.
how long have you been married now?
We shall have been married 60 years on the 7th of June this year.
And how many children have you had?
Only one.
And a boy?
Yes, Robert.
And what
Because
does...
people said you've called him after your father. I said, no, not really, because that's not his proper name.
And what does he do, Robert?
Well, Robert lives in Worksop. He's not married because he said he used to bring these young ladies home and I used to look them over, you know, different ones. Is this going to be the one? That was when he was in his 20s. And they suddenly stopped coming. So naturally I said one day, I said, what's happened to these young ladies that came? And I mean, one came, she used to stay overnight because they used to go and stay with a friend of mine that had met in the war. He had a lovely place, the Holland's Hotel in the Lake District. And they even went up there together. And I said, what's happened? They suddenly stopped. He said, well, it was a case of this. After so long, this conversation would come round to marriage. And I had to make a choice. I could either have marriage or I could have
Freedom.
And go where I wanted to go. I couldn't afford travel and marriage as well. So travel won, and he certainly has. He went to India, he's been all over the
What
world.
kind of a job did he do?
Well, for 25 years he worked at the Worksop Co-op on Eastgate.
Yeah.
He left school on the Friday and he started on the Monday. He was in those days. And he'll be 57 next Sunday.
Now tell me, Barbara, you've lived to be a good age. Hopefully there's a lot more to come yet.
Oh.
But would you say you've had a good life?
A lot of ups and downs in it, yes, because I did have a part where I had quite a bit of ill health and I had to go into hospital for operations. And when Robert was only 6, I had to have a hysterectomy, which wasn't popular in those days at all.
No.
And I had an operation before that, and in those days, there wasn't the stitches. I remember looking down when I came to, and there were steel clips. I was fastened together with steel clips, and then when they take them out, they used to just clip them off and then pull them out. It wasn't very pleasant, I'll tell you.
Oh, no, but all in all then, tell me, what do you think of Dinnington?
Well, it's certainly altered a great deal. As I remember it, I think people, well, there wasn't so many, so everybody knew everybody. And they all seemed to be friends.
And everybody got time for everybody.
Yes, and if there wasn't well, and there was no relative to come, everybody went to see to everybody else. They'd sit up at night with them and anything.
Tell me, did you used to go to the pictures?
Very, very rare. Very rare.
What about dancing?
No, I never went to that.
So how did you and your husband, when you were courting, did you go anywhere for entertainment, or were you quite happy? There were no television.
No, we didn't really court, as you might say, very long. We got to the age of 29. The war came. It altered everything. We were 21 when the war came. He was a neighbour, but he'd already gone in the army, signed on for 4 years. The war came, so he had 10 years.
Yeah.
So he was mostly abroad, Egypt, all over the place. But I'd already, only a teenager, I'd got different boyfriends.
Mm-hmm.
There was no fault of anything to do with Bill at all.
That's right, that's right.
So of course the war came, and then at 21, and things changed. We got split up, and then I tell you, I worked in Graham's, and of course if you wasn't married, you had to go away. You know, if you was married, you could have a local job, but you couldn't. So I was posted to Wetherby, and I went to Wetherby Grange. It's pulled down now. All the best parts were shipped off to America. But it belonged to Sir Robert Gunter. And the female staff, there was only about 10 of us, and all the others was men. And it was a civil defence rescue place, and they used to come there for retraining.
What did he do, Gunter?
Oh, I don't know.
Or was he just a gentleman?
I never met him. But the house belonged to Sir Robert Gunter.
A lovely house.
Yes, it was a very big old house. And the officers, and there was only about 10 females, we was in the house itself, but the men was all in huts outside. But it was commandeered, you see, during
the war.
All the Adam fireplaces and things like that, the staircases, they was all boarded up. We couldn't actually see them. That was to stop any damage.
For protecting them?
Yes.
Now, what's this thing about Worksop? What were you going to tell me?
Well, my mother came from Worksop, so there wasn't the transport, you know, when I was young like that. And I can remember, and I thought it was marvellous, went in a little pony and trap, you know, to Worksop and things like that.
So before that then, if you wanted to go to Sheffield, before the buses came and cars, or you wanted to go to Rotherham, you didn't go?
Well, no.
Or you had to walk it?
That's right. My father used to have to walk to the market to take the sheep when he was a boy.
At Worksop?
No, Rotherham.
At Rotherham?
He used to have to walk them to take them to the market.
And walk back?
And walk back, yes. But
happy days.
it was the expected thing of them, that was it. Now,
You can remember what?
The tolling bell.
The tolling bell. What was that?
Now there was no traffic as much, so it was very, very quiet. So as children we could play on the road. And my grandfather lived in one of these old cottages, and we used to be playing on the road, and then all at once the church bell would start to toll. It would do 3, pause, another 3, pause, and then another 3. And then after that, you counted, and you used to say, "Shut up, quiet now," and they used to count, and that was the age of the person that had just been died, and that was the way the message got round. And he used to say, he used to be counting, and then he'd say, "Oh, that'll be old so-so. I knew he was on his last legs."
I've never heard of that one before.
Oh, yes, yes.
I have heard somebody say that when one of the Aythorpes died, that they put straw on the streets or something to deaden the sound of the cartwheels.
Well, I don't know about that, but when the Aythorpe daughter got married, they couldn't do it today, but we always got an invite with the family being associated with them, so they always sent us in invitations. And when they was going down to the church to get married, they had these white robes, and the girl guides and the brownies held them from the side entrance from the hall right down to the church, each side, and they was able to walk down and then come back with the bridegroom. I mean, traffic today would have been impossible, wouldn't it?
Can't cross the road, never mind.
But I can remember seeing that done.
Museum Church. Now, what's the story about this then, Barbara, of Eyam Church?
Now, you know the Alice Nina Aythorpe that laid the stone on the Middleton Institute? The name should still be on it.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Now, her sister, one of her sisters, married this, now what do they call him at Eyam Hall? Wright. One of the Aythorpe's daughters married a Wright that owns, and the still Wright family still own this Eyam Hall. So when she was died, this Miss Aythorpe, there was usually all buried in the vaults, you know, they're under the church. all the Athorpes aren't under there. I want to be in the fresh air. So she'd been used to going to this Ian to her sister, this Mrs. Wright, and that family, the later people, they're still there, still running it now. And so we often used to go. So she said, I want to be taken to Ian to be buried. So one day we used to go round, Bill, we had this car, and there was Bill and I and my son, and we knew that she was buried at Ian in the churchyard. So we went in, the church was open, there was a lady sat there selling cards and things, and I said to her, could you tell me, have you any idea where I could find a very old grave? I said, it will be a Miss Aythorpe that came from Dinnington Hall. No, she said, I'm sorry, but look at the old part of the churchyard. She directed us. So we went round. So we all took a different route, all three of us, because it was quite big then, it had been extended. So I'd got the old part, and I was walking along, and I suddenly saw a bird bath on a grave. And I thought, I'm going to have a look at that, because I knew she was so fond of animals and things. And I went, and there it was. So I called them back, and they came, and it was there. And it said, Alice Nina Aythorpe, the daughter of Dinnington's Hall, the Squire of Dinnington Hall. And I found the grave.
Well done.
It was all covered in weeds. So we went back the next Sunday, and Robert took a trowel. We went to Swinton's Hill Wood, and we dug violets out, because that used to belong to them. He pulled all the weeds out, set all these violets, and the last time, is a few years ago, it was covered in violets. That we take
A carpet of violets.
That's right.
Lovely. Well, can I just say to you now, Barbara, I've had a lovely morning here with you, reminiscing and so forth. It really has been a pleasure. I could stop here all day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're running out of
That's
tape.
right, yeah.
But all I can say is, Barbara Rushby, I hope you live for many more years. And the wonderful thing is, you've been able to keep those lovely memories sharp and clear. Thanks very much, Barbara.
Remember.
Wait a minute, you just bring this one in about the falcon and tell
It
the
was-
old falcon.
The very old one. It was only like a cottage, and she just used to use the front room. That was the
And who had it? Who?
Ada Makinson. She ran it. Ada Makinson. And I can remember her just slightly in her old age, because my father used to go down and do a little bit of garden for her, and I used to go as a child with her, with him. And she was a nice old